I am the fake heiress who was switched at birth in the Sue family, forced to marry the rumored brutal and ruthless disabled tycoon Sebastian in place of the real heiress Serena. On the wedding day, I prepared to publicly refuse the marriage and escape this cage. But just as I stepped onto the red carpet, a voice echoed in my mind, pretending to be disabled is so tiring, but luckily my wife is fragrant and soft enough. I looked up and met Sebastian's sinister eyes, but I heard another sentence from the depths of his heart, I just don't know if she's willing to let me kiss her. I picked up the microphone and changed my words. In the pure white and sacred hall, guests filled the seats, their murmurs like annoying buzzing. All eyes converged on me, filled with sympathy, disdain, and schadenfreude. I am Sophie, the fake heiress raised by the Sue family for 20 years. Half a month ago, the real heiress Serena was found, and overnight, I fell from the clouds into the mud, becoming a joke. And today, this joke of mine has to marry Sebastian, the heir of the Shen family who became disabled in both legs due to a car accident and has a violent temperament, in place of Serena. The Sue family said this is the only way for me to repay their 20 years of nurturing grace. I clenched the bouquet, my knuckles turning white. I walked step by step toward the man sitting in the wheelchair at the end of the red carpet. He was wearing a black custom-tailored suit, his face impeccably handsome, but those eyes were laced with ice, so sinister that no one dared to look directly at them. The priest's solemn voice rang out, "Miss Sophie, do you willing to marry the gentleman before you, regardless of?" I was ready, right at this moment, to say those words I do not in front of everyone. I wanted to make the Sue family lose face and fight for my own dignity. But just as I opened my mouth, a strange male voice exploded in my mind without warning, pretending to be disabled is so tiring, but luckily my wife is fragrant and soft enough. My whole body stiffened, thinking I was hallucinating. I just don't know if she's willing to let me kiss her. This voice. I suddenly lifted my head, my gaze crashing straight into Sebastian's cold, emotionless eyes. He looked at me expressionlessly, his eyes even carrying a hint of impatience and disgust. But the voice in my mind continued, why isn't she speaking? Is she really going to refuse the marriage? Then wouldn't I have pretended for so long in vain? My heart pounded wildly. So, this secret was known only to me. The priest cleared his throat and asked again, Miss Sophie? The gazes of the full hall of guests almost pierced through me. Panic and anger had already appeared on my adoptive parents' faces. In the corner, Serena, dressed in a bridesmaid gown, had a smug smile curling at her lips. I looked at Sebastian in the wheelchair, he still had that unapproachable appearance. Hurry up and agree, you silly wife. I suddenly smiled. I took the microphone from the MC, and my voice clearly spread throughout the entire hall, I do. The moment my words fell, the entire hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The panic on my adoptive parents' faces turned to astonishment, while Serena's smile completely froze. The most spectacular was Sebastian. A crack appeared on his perennial ice-cold face, though barely noticeable. But I clearly heard the tumultuous waves in his heart. She agreed? She actually agreed? Why? The script wasn't written like this. The Sue family clearly said she would rather die than comply, making me lose face in public. Could it be that my masculine charm is so strong that she can't resist? I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. The priest, as if granted amnesty, quickly completed the remaining procedures. When Sebastian's assistant handed over the ring, I proactively extended my hand. The cool ring slipped onto my ring finger, and as Sebastian's cool fingertips touched my skin, I clearly heard a thud in his heart, her hand is so soft too. After exchanging rings, it was time for the kiss. Everyone held their breath, wanting to see the final act of this absurd wedding. How would a disabled person kiss his bride? Sebastian maneuvered his electric wheelchair slowly toward me. He lifted his head, those ink-black eyes looking at me up close, full of oppressive force. To outsiders, it seemed he was warning me with his eyes, commanding me to lower my head and cooperate. But what I heard was, if I make her bend down, won't it make me seem useless? But if I stand up, the whole plan will be exposed. What to do? So urgent. I should have rehearsed this in advance. Seeing his cold face but his inner anxiety like ants on a hot pan, I just found it amusing. I bent down and leaned toward him. Our warm breaths intertwined, and I saw my small reflection in his pitch-black pupils. Ah, she's coming over. She smells so good. Where should I kiss? The lips? Wouldn't that be too fast? While he was still engaged in an internal struggle, I proactively turned my face and pressed my cheek against his. His lips were cool and soft, lightly touching my cheek before quickly separating, as fleeting as a dragonfly skimming water. But I knew fireworks had exploded in his heart. Kissed her. Kissed her. My wife's cheek is so smooth. I'm dead. After the wedding ended, I was sent to the Shen family manor. In that extended Rolls-Royce, it was just Sebastian and me. He leaned back in the seat, eyes closed in rest, not saying a word to me the whole time, as if I were heir. But the barrage in my mind never stopped. What is she thinking now? Does she regret it? Does she think I'm boring? Should I find a topic? What to talk about? The weather? Too cliché. The Sue family? No, that would make her unhappy. Holding back my laughter, I also leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes like him. She closed her eyes too. Does she also feel awkward? It's all my fault, my mouth is too clumsy. I was really afraid that if I listened any longer, I would burst out laughing. The Shen family manor was as large as a castle, exuding understated luxury and oppressive coldness everywhere. My new room was on the second floor, decorated almost identically to my previous bedroom in the Sue family. I knew this was the preferences specially provided by the Sue family to please the Shen family. They sold me thoroughly and attentively. The butler escorted me to the door and respectfully said, "Young madam, the young master is handling business in the study, please rest first." I nodded and pushed the door open. The room was empty. Fine, I was happy to have some peace. I took off the cumbersome wedding dress, walked into the bathroom, and soaked myself in warm water. The chaotic voices in my mind finally quieted down. This golden finger of hearing Sebastian's inner voice came too suddenly, yet just right. It allowed me to grasp an interesting possibility in my most desperate situation. Sebastian, a man pretending to be disabled. Why was he doing this? As I was thinking, there was a knock on the bathroom door. "Young madam, it's me, Mary." I wrapped myself in a bathrobe and went out. A kind-faced middle-aged woman stood at the door, holding a cup of warm milk. "The young master was afraid you might be hungry and asked me to bring something to eat." I took the milk, "Thank you." Mary didn't leave. Instead, she looked at me hesitantly. "Young madam, our young master, he's just a bit cold-tempered, but he's actually not bad. Don't be afraid of him." I smiled. "I know." Mary was stunned, seemingly not expecting me to say that. I finished the milk and returned the cup to her. The fatigue of the night hit me, and I soon fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a slight noise. By the moonlight filtering through the window, I saw a tall figure standing by my bed. It was Sebastian. He wasn't in his wheelchair, he was just standing there, his legs straight and slender. He quietly looked at me, his gaze profound, not knowing what he was thinking. I closed my eyes, motionless, even slowing my breathing. She looked so obedient when asleep. Like a little cat. He thought in his heart, then I felt him slowly lean down. His warm breath sprayed on my forehead. What does he want to do? My heartbeat skipped a beat instantly. Just once, she won't notice. A soft kiss gently landed on my forehead. When I woke up the next day, Sebastian was no longer in the room. On the bedside table was a set of brand new clothes, and next to it, a black card. Just after I finished washing up, my phone rang. It was my nominal mother, Lillian. As soon as the call connected, her sharp and sarcastic voice came through. "Sophie. You've grown bold. Were you playing us at the wedding yesterday? Who told you to agree?" I held the phone a bit farther away, my tone flat. "Wasn't it you who forced me to marry?" I agreed. "Shouldn't you be happy?" "Happy? What am I happy about? Do you know how much grievance Serena has suffered because of you? You, a fake who usurped the nest, should have some self-awareness and obediently listen. Now great, you've become Sebastian's wife, what about our Serena? So, they were afraid I'd take Serena's position and turn around to suppress them. How ridiculous. If Serena wants to marry, let her tell Sebastian herself. I replied coldly. You. Sophie, I'm telling you, don't be ungrateful. You've eaten and used the Sioux families for 20 years, now when we ask you to do something for the family, you make excuses? I order you to immediately tell Sebastian to inject 100 million into the Sioux group, otherwise. Otherwise what? I interrupted her, otherwise tell the Shen family that I'm not the Sioux family's biological daughter? Do you think the Shen family cares if my surname is Sioux or Lee? The other end of the phone fell silent. I continued, Mom, you seem to have misunderstood something. I am now Sebastian's wife, Mrs. Shen. The Sioux family's affairs have nothing to do with me anymore. After saying that, I hung up the phone directly. Just as I put down the phone, the room door was pushed open. Sebastian, sitting in his wheelchair, was pushed in by his assistant. He still had that icy appearance, awake? I hummed in response. He signaled the assistant to place breakfast on the table, then waved his hand to dismiss everyone. Only the two of us were left in the room. The atmosphere was somewhat stagnant. Who was she just talking to on the phone? The Sioux family? From her tone, it seems like they argued. Did the Sioux family bully her again? These idiots, do they really think my Sebastian's wife is someone they can manipulate casually? He grumbled in his heart, but said aloud, there's a card on the table, no password, spend as you like. I looked at him and suddenly asked, if the Sioux family comes to you and asks you to divorce me for Serena, would you agree? Sebastian's movements paused, he raised his eyes to look at me, his gaze sharp as a knife. What does she mean? Testing me? Or does she want a divorce? I just tricked my wife into my hands, how could I let her go? Alarms rang in his heart, but on the surface, he scoffed, his tone full of sarcasm, Sophie, you're overestimating yourself. The Shen family's door isn't something you can enter or exit as you please. You'd better behave yourself and not have any crooked thoughts. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you know what it means to live worse than death. He said it ruthlessly, but I wasn't afraid at all. Because I heard him shouting madly in his heart, yes, that's it, threaten her. Scare her. Make her not dare to leave me. I'm such a genius. I lowered my head, pretending to be afraid, and said softly, I understand. She really got scared. Sigh, did I say it too harshly? Will it scare my wife badly? Forget it, later I'll have the assistant buy some things she likes to coax her. What does she like again? What was written in the information from the Sioux family? Oh, right, limited edition bags and jewelry. I held back my laughter and silently ate breakfast. I have to say, the Shen family's chef has really good skills. After finishing breakfast, as I was preparing to go upstairs, Serena's call came in. She sure can hold her composure, only contacting me now. On the phone, her voice was gentle and concerned. Sister, are you okay? Are you getting used to the Shen family? Brother-in-law, is he good to you? I leaned on the sofa and said lazily, pretty good, he dotes on me a lot. The other end obviously choked. Dotes on her? That disabled Sebastian knows how to dote on someone? Sophie, this bitch, just knows how to brag. Oh, so I can not only hear Sebastian's inner voice, but as long as they're close or through the phone, I can hear some of others' inner voices too. This discovery made me feel even better. Serena quickly adjusted her emotions and said in a aggrieved yet magnanimous tone, Sister, don't misunderstand, I don't mean anything else. I'm just worried about you. I know you were forced into this marriage, and you must be unhappy inside. Mom is the same, she has a sharp tongue but a soft heart, don't argue with her. Sister, I have plans to go shopping with friends this afternoon, do you want to come out and relax together? We sisters haven't seen each other for a long time. My eyes turned, and I agreed. Okay. After hanging up, I saw Sebastian coming out of the study, looking at me with a displeased expression. Serena? What does she want with Sophie? These two women together, definitely no good. No, I have to follow and see. I pretended not to see him and went upstairs to change clothes on my own. I picked a simple little black dress, applied light makeup, and went out with the black card Sebastian gave me. The driver took me to the agreed mall. Serena and her two rich girlfriends were already waiting in the cafe. Seeing me come in, they immediately greeted me enthusiastically. Sophie, you're finally here. Wow, you look so beautiful today. It seems the life of Sebastian's wife is very comfortable. Serena affectionately linked arms with me, led me to sit down, but her eyes scanned me up and down. When she saw the black card in my hand, a flash of jealousy appeared in her eyes. It's actually a global black card. Sebastian is so generous to her? After exchanging a few pleasantries, Serena finally got to the point. Sister, actually, I asked you out today to apologize to you. It's all my fault. If I hadn't come back, you wouldn't have to. As she spoke, her eyes reddened. The girlfriends beside her immediately chimed in, Serena, you're just too kind. How can this be your fault? If anyone is to blame, it's some people who occupied a position that wasn't theirs for 20 years. Now that things are back to their rightful owner, it's only right. Exactly, marrying into the Shen family is her climbing high. If Sebastian wasn't disabled, how could it be her turn? They sang in harmony, their words implicitly stabbing at me. I leisurely sipped my coffee without speaking. Seeing that I didn't take the bait, Serena changed her expression, took out a check from her bag, and pushed it in front of me. Sister, this is 500,000. I know you've been wronged, take this money and buy something you like. The password is your birthday. I looked at the check and smiled. My birthday? I asked, did you get my permission to use my birthday as the password? Serena's face instantly turned pale. There was a moment of dead silence in the cafe. Serena's two girlfriends looked at each other, obviously not expecting me to be so unyielding. What does she mean? It's just a birthday, why is she so arrogant? Isn't it just because she's now Sebastian's wife? What's so great about that? Serena forced a smile, a flash of embarrassment in her eyes. Sister, I'm just used to it. After all, I've used this birthday for 20 years too. She was reminding me that she was the true master of the Su family, and I was just a thief who used her identity for 20 years. I pushed the check back, my voice not loud but clear enough. Miss Serena, I think you've misunderstood. First, I married into the Shen family because your Su family begged me to, there's no such thing as me climbing high. Second, although my husband has mobility issues, he is still the legitimate heir of the Shen family, it's not for outsiders to gossip. Third. I picked up the black card on the table and waved it in front of them. My husband gave me this, unlimited credit. You can keep this 500,000 to buy candy for yourself. Serena's face changed from white to green to red, a spectacular display. Sophie, this bitch. How dare she talk to me like this? She must be doing it on purpose. Deliberately using the card Sebastian gave her to humiliate me. Sister, how can you say that? She started squeezing out tears again, looking like she had suffered a great injustice. I was too lazy to watch her act anymore and stood up. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. The Shen family has strict curfews, my husband will worry. After saying that, I turned and left, leaving behind a chorus of gnashing teeth in their hearts. I walked into a luxury store, ready to experience the fun of spending freely. Just as I picked up a bag, I heard a familiar inner voice, this color doesn't suit her, that white one looks better. I turned around and saw in the nearby rest area, Sebastian sitting there, holding a finance magazine, pretending to read. Next to him sat a strange young man, with an expression of enjoying the show. Brother Sebastian, this is too exaggerated, you personally tell your wife when she goes shopping? What about your persona? Your cold and sinister disabled tycoon persona? That young man, named Lucas, was Sebastian's childhood friend. Sebastian gave him a cold glance. Shut up. Lucas whistled in his heart. TSK, angry from embarrassment. Who would have thought the eternal iron tree Sebastian would one day become a stalker for love? I pretended not to see them and went straight to the sales associate, pointing at that white bag. This one, and that one, all the white ones, wrap them up for me. The associate's eyes lit up and immediately went to pack them diligently. I took the card to pay, and as I passed by them, my steps paused for a moment. Sebastian immediately sat up straight, almost holding the magazine to his face. She's coming over. She's coming over. Did she discover me? Should I greet her? No, too deliberate. Holding back my laughter, I walked past without glancing sideways. After paying, I carried the big and small bags preparing to leave, but Lucas chased after me. Hi, sister-in-law. He smiled brightly. What a coincidence, you're shopping too. I nodded. Young Master Lucas. Don't call me young Master Lucas, it's too distant, just call me Lucas. He familiarly came over. Sister-in-law, you bought so many things, can you carry them alone? How about I help you take them back? Before I could speak, I heard Sebastian's inner roar. Lucas, you bastard. What do you want? Stay away from my wife. The next second, Sebastian's wheelchair whooshed over, blocking between me and Lucas. He said to me with a cold face, go home. His tone was stiff like giving an order. I obediently nodded, okay. Then, under Lucas's shocked gaze, I naturally hung all the shopping bags in my hands on Sebastian's wheelchair armrests. Sebastian's wheelchair was instantly overwhelmed by colorful shopping bags. His whole body stiffened. She hung the things on my wheelchair? She's treating me like a mobile shelf? Forget it, as long as my wife is happy. Lucas on the side was holding back laughter to the point of internal injury, his shoulders shrugging. Ha 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 ha. Brother Sebastian, you have this day too. Laughing to death. No, I have to take a photo, this is a historic moment. Sebastian shot him a glare. You dare. Lucas immediately restrained his smile and said seriously, Brother Sebastian, sister-in-law, I suddenly remembered I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Take your time chatting. After saying that, he slipped away quickly. Looking at Sebastian's comical appearance surrounded by shopping bags, I was in a great mood. Let's go, sir. I pushed his wheelchair outward. His body was very stiff, seeming unaccustomed to being so close to me. She touched my hand. So close, I can smell the fragrance of her hair. Why is my heartbeat speeding up again? Back in the car, he finally returned to that indifferent appearance, leaning on the seat with eyes closed. I looked at the rapidly receding street scene outside the window and suddenly said, Sir, why did you go to the mall today? He didn't even lift his eyelids. Business talk. Lied, will she not believe it? My acting should be fine, right? I owed and didn't pursue further. The atmosphere in the car quieted down again. After a while, I heard him muttering softly in his heart, is she angry? Was my tone just too fierce? It's all that big-mouthed Lucas's fault. How should I explain to her? Directly say I was worried about you, so I followed? No, too undignified. Got it. He suddenly opened his eyes, took a velvet box from the side, and handed it to me. This, for you. I opened it and saw a diamond necklace, exquisitely designed, sparkling in the sunlight. It was the style I had looked at a few more times in the store. No reward without merit. I pushed the box back. He frowned, seeming dissatisfied with my reaction. Why not? Don't all women like this? Serena's friends' eyes go straight when they see jewelry. Is she different from them? Or does she think I'm trying to buy her with this? His mind raced through 1,000 thoughts, but he snorted coldly aloud, this is what you deserve as Sebastian's wife, not a reward for you. Wear it, don't embarrass the Shen family. This excuse was really lame and tsundere. I picked up the necklace, leaned toward him, and tilted my face up. Then, you help me put it on? His breath hitched. She's asking me to help her wear the necklace? So close. I can see her eyelashes, so long. Her lips look so soft. His hand trembled slightly as he took the necklace, his cool fingertips brushing the skin on the back of my neck, bringing a shiver. I could clearly feel his increasingly rapid heartbeat. It's on. Can I kiss her? Just once. His face slowly approached mine. Just as his lips were about to touch mine, the driver braked sharply, and our bodies lurched forward due to inertia. Sebastian's forehead heavily knocked against the seat back in front. Hiss, he grunted in pain. I heard him roaring madly in his heart, which blind fool. Ruining my good moment. Deduct wages. Must deduct wages. The driver's panicked voice came from the front. Sorry, young master. A car suddenly rushed out. I looked up and saw a red Porsche arrogantly blocking our car. The car door opened, and a woman dressed flamboyantly and gaudily stepped out. She walked straight to our car window and knocked hard. Sebastian. Get out here. I recognized her. She was Sebastian's cousin, Miranda. A spoiled and willful princess. Sebastian's face instantly darkened, the earlier romantic thoughts vanishing without a trace. What is she here for? Definitely sent by Miles. Miles, Sebastian's second uncle, and currently his biggest competitor in the Shen family. It seems the good show is about to start. Sebastian lowered the window, his voice cold as ice. What is it? Miranda crossed her arms, disdainfully sizing me up, then said to Sebastian in a sarcastic tone, Brother, I came to see my new sister-in-law. I heard she's a fake? Although our Shen family isn't what it used to be, it's not like any Tom, Dick, or Harry can enter, right? Marrying a fake heiress, aren't you afraid of being laughed at when it gets out? Her words were extremely unpleasant. Before I could speak, I heard Sebastian sneer coldly in his heart, Joke? When I send your dad to prison, let's see who the real joke is. On the surface, he remained impassive and said faintly, This is my business, it's not your place to comment. Move. No. Miranda persisted, Sebastian, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Aren't you just looking for an easy-to-control woman to help stabilize your position? Let me tell you, it's useless. Second uncle said, as a cripple, you should have the awareness of a cripple, don't occupy the latrine without shitting. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Miranda covered her face, looking at me in disbelief. You dare hit me? I shook my somewhat numb hand and looked at her coldly. First, I am Sebastian's lawfully wedded wife, the young madam of the Shen family, not some fake. Second, it's not your turn to lecture my husband. Third, if you dare speak disrespectfully to us again, it won't be just a slap. Miranda trembled with anger, pointing at me you for a long time, unable to say a complete sentence. Meanwhile, Sebastian beside me still looked cold as frost on the surface, but inside, he was blooming with joy. Well hit. Worthy of my wife. So cool. This protective husband look, I love it. No, I have to stay aloof, can't let her see I'm happy. He cleared his throat and scolded me coldly, nonsense. Who told you to hit? Then, he turned to the driver, his tone even colder, what are you staring for? Drive. If she blocks again, just run her over. The driver floored the accelerator, and the car surged forward. Miranda screamed in fright and scrambled away. From the rearview mirror, I could see her stamping her feet in rage, pointing at our car's tail and cursing loudly. The atmosphere in the car was somewhat subtle. Sebastian kept a straight face without speaking. But I knew he was enjoying it inside, so domineering. My wife is too domineering. That slap just now was so satisfying. I've wanted to tear Miranda's stinking mouth for a long time. Have to reward her when we get back. What to buy? Bags? Jewelry? Seems a bit vulgar. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes too. hitting someone is physical work, I'm a bit tired. Back at the manor, Mary saw us and immediately came up. Young master, young madam, you're back. The second master is here, waiting in the living room. Sebastian's gaze instantly cooled. Miles? What is he here for? A weasel paying New Year's respects to a chicken, no good intentions. He maneuvered the wheelchair into the living room. A man around 50, with an elegant appearance and gold-rimmed glasses, stood up. He was Miles. Sebastian, you're back. He walked over with a chuckle, his gaze falling on me. This must be my niece-in-law? Such a fine lady, very matching with Sebastian. I slightly nodded without speaking. Sebastian's tone was faint. Second uncle, what is it? Can't I come see you if there's nothing? Miles sighed, looking heartbroken. Sebastian, it's not that second uncle is saying you. Your sister Miranda is a bit spoiled, but she cares about you. How could you let your wife hit her? If this gets out, what would it look like? So he's here to call to account. Sebastian sneered inwardly. Keep acting. Aloud he said, it was Sophie being ignorant, I've already scolded her. Miles nodded satisfactorily, then looked at me with a hint of elder scrutiny and pressure in his eyes. Niece-in-law, you've just married into the Shen family, you might not understand our family rules yet. In the future, be cautious in words and actions, understand? I lowered my eyes, pretending to be submissive. Yes, second uncle. A fake, quite good at pretending. Miles thought disdainfully in his heart. He sat for a while, hypocritically concerned about Sebastian's health and the company's situation, before getting up to leave. As soon as he left, Sebastian's disguise immediately dropped, his whole body emanating a terrifying chill. Old fox, one day, I'll tear off your fake mask. He turned to look at me, his gaze complex. Today she offended Miranda and Miles for me, her days in the Shen family might not be easy from now on. I have to find a way to protect her. As he was thinking, I walked in front of him, squatted down, and looked up at him. Sir, are you hiding something from me? His pupils contracted. What has she discovered? Sebastian's gaze instantly became vigilant and sharp, like a beast whose reverse scale was touched. What does she mean? Bluffing me? Or did she really see something? Impossible, my disguise is perfect. His mind calculated rapidly, but his face was icy cold. I don't understand what you're saying. I looked into his eyes and said word by word, your legs aren't disabled at all, right? The air seemed to freeze at that moment. The color drained from Sebastian's face instantly, he stared at me fixedly, his eyes full of shock, disbelief, and a hint of anger and killing intent after being exposed. How does she know? Who? Who told her? Lucas? Or Mary? No, impossible, they wouldn't dare. Could she have discovered it herself? When did she discover it? Was it when I went to her room last night? Or earlier? The storm in his heart was more intense than I imagined. I knew this move was risky. If he didn't have those feelings for me, at this moment, I might already be a dead person. But I bet he couldn't bear to. I didn't dodge, calmly meeting his gaze that almost wanted to torture me, and continued, that car accident wasn't an accident, it was designed by Miles, right? You turned the tables, pretending to be disabled to make him lower his guard, so you could collect evidence of his attempt to harm you and catch him in one fell swoop. Sebastian's breathing became heavy. He neither admitted nor denied, just staring at me as if to see through me. She knows everything. Who is she exactly? A fake heiress raised in the boudoir by the Sue family, how could she have such intellect and observation? What is her purpose in approaching me? His suspicions surged like tides. I sighed inwardly. It seems guessing alone isn't enough, I need to give him some strong evidence. I stood up, walked to his side, leaned down to his ear, and said in a voice only we could hear. I know Miles planted a spy in your company, in the finance department. That vice director named Fiona, her son owes a huge gambling debt abroad, and Miles helped her pay it off. Sebastian's body shook violently, he suddenly looked up at me, his eyes full of horror. This matter was a clue he had spent great effort to find, his top secret. Besides him and Lucas, it was impossible for a third person to know. How does she know this? His inner defenses completely collapsed at this moment. I straightened up and looked at him calmly. Now, are you willing to believe me? I'm not your enemy. From the moment I put on the ring you gave me, we're in the same boat. Your enemies are my enemies. After a long time, he hoarsely asked the question he most wanted to know. How did you know? I smiled and made up an excuse. In the Sue family before, I saw a lot of such shady tactics, I'm just more sensitive to them. He obviously didn't believe it. But he didn't pursue further. Because a voice in his heart told him, no matter how she knows, she's right, we're now in the same boat. And she has no malice. Perhaps? I can really trust her. He looked at me, his gaze changed. No longer just simple liking and possessiveness, but with a hint of appreciation and dependence. Come here. He extended his hand toward me. I walked over and placed my hand in his palm. He pulled hard, and I fell onto his lap. I exclaimed in surprise, subconsciously wanting to get up, but he tightly encircled me with his arms. Don't move. He buried his head in my neck, his voice muffled. Let me hold you for a while. So soft. So fragrant. So this is what it feels like to hold the person you like. My heart is melting. My stiff body slowly relaxed. So this is what it feels like to be fully trusted and depended on. After the secret was exposed, Sebastian completely let loose in front of me. Although in public, he was still that aloof and gloomy disabled tycoon. But in private, when no one was around, he would stand up from the wheelchair and hug me from behind. Or when I was reading, he would rest his head on my lap and have me read to him. Of course, what he liked most was listening to me curse Miles and Miranda. Whenever I cursed that uncle-nephew pair to the dogs, he would listen with relish beside me, madly liking it in his heart. Well cursed. That's the word. Curse a few more. My wife is truly versatile in both literary and martial arts, can beat the willful princess, curse the shameless villain. Our relationship heated up rapidly in a weird yet harmonious atmosphere. That day, the Sue family called again. It was my father, Victor. His tone was milder than Lillian's, but the underlying arrogance and command were the same. Sophie, come home this weekend, it's your sister's birthday banquet. As the older sister, how can you not attend? Serena's birthday banquet? I almost forgot, Serena's birthday was also the one I used for 20 years. In previous years, the Sue family would hold a big one for me. This year, the protagonist changed, but they still wanted me to go back as a foil. I'm not free. I refused directly. Victor's tone sank. Sophie, don't forget your identity. Even if you've married into the Shen family, you're still my Sue family's daughter. Asking you to come back is giving you face. This rebellious daughter. Really not taking us seriously more and more. If not for the Shen family's sake, I wouldn't bother with her. Hearing his hypocritical inner voice, I just felt disgusted. Face? My face was already trampled under your feet when you forced me to substitute in the marriage. Mr. Victor, if there's nothing in the future, don't call me again. I hung up and blacklisted the number. Sebastian came out of the study, just hearing the last sentence. Well done. Should have blacklisted long ago. He walked to my side and handed me a cup of heated milk. Don't get angry over irrelevant people. I took the milk, feeling warm inside. I'm not angry. I said, I'm just thinking what kind of birthday gift to give Serena. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. Oh? My wife is going to make trouble? Looking forward to it. He asked calmly, need help? I shook my head and smiled slyly. No, I can do it myself. Serena's birthday banquet was extremely grand. The venue was on the lawn of the Sue family villa, invitations sent throughout Yun City's upper society. The Sue family wanted to use Serena's birthday banquet to tell everyone that their true heiress was back and was about to ally with another prominent family in the city, the Gu family, through marriage. On the night of the banquet, Serena wore a custom princess gown, adorned with dazzling jewelry, like a proud peacock shuttling among the guests. My and Sebastian's appearance caused quite a stir. Everyone knew about my grudge with the Su family and wanted to see what kind of drama would unfold with the real and fake heiresses on the same stage. Victor and Lillian immediately came up, their faces piled with enthusiastic fake smiles. "Sebastian, Sophie, you're here." Sebastian nodded faintly, considering it a greeting. Serena also came over, affectionately linking my arm. "Sister, you're finally here, I thought you weren't coming." While speaking, her eyes kept glancing at Sebastian. "He looks so handsome today, pity he's disabled. But no matter, once I marry Gabriel, my status will be much higher than this fake Sophie's. Then, see how she can be arrogant in front of me." I smiled and took out an exquisitely wrapped gift box from my bag. "It's my sister's birthday, of course, as the older sister, I have to come. This is the gift I prepared for you, happy birthday." Serena took the gift and eagerly opened it in front of everyone. All stretched their necks, wanting to see what luxurious gift Sebastian's wife would give. However, when the box opened, Serena's smile froze on her face. Among the guests, there were gasps. In the gift box, no jewelry, no designer bags. Only a thick stack of A4 papers. The top sheet had a title in bold black font: "Investigation Report on Mr. Victor's Extramarital Affair, Asset Transfer, and the Mystery of the Illegitimate Daughter Serena's Identity." The entire lawn instantly fell into deathly silence. Victor's face turned ashen white. Lillian screamed and rushed up to grab the thing in my hand. "You're talking nonsense. Sophie, you madwoman. What do you want by forging these things?" I deftly dodged and handed another copy to the stunned reporter nearby. "Dear media friends, this report in my hand details how Mr. Victor, during his marriage to my mother Mrs. Lillian, rekindled with his first love and gave birth to Serena. And how he gradually transferred the assets of the Su Group to shell companies under his lover's name. Oh, right, one more thing." I looked at the now ashen-faced Serena and said with a smile, "Actually, I knew long ago that I'm not the Su family's child. Because I saw Victor with that woman with my own eyes. So, the so-called switch at birth was from beginning to end a scam to legitimately elevate the illegitimate daughter. And I, and my mother Mrs. Lillian, are both victims of this scam." My words exploded like a heavy bomb in the crowd. Lillian trembled all over, pointing at Victor, her lips quivering, unable to say a word. She always thought Serena was Victor's child with some other woman, but didn't know that other woman was her husband's white moonlight he had longed for decades. She had always treated her enemy's daughter as her own to love, yet treated her real enemy as a reliable husband. Is there anything more ironic in the world? Victor was completely panicked, pointing at me and roaring sternly but weakly, "You're slandering. These are all forged by you. I'll sue you for defamation." "Is that so?" I waved the report in my hand. "Inside are every transfer record between you and your lover's company, and your paternity test report. These can't be forged." Of course, these evidences weren't found by me. It was Sebastian. When I said I wanted to give Serena a big gift, he had already investigated the Su family thoroughly behind my back. Looking at the farce before me, there was no ripple in my heart. I just calmly completed my revenge. And Sebastian beside me, from beginning to end, just watched quietly. But to me, his inner barrage had exploded the screen. Well done. My wife is awesome. Striking at the root. Fatal blow. So cool. Victor, this old thing should have been ruined long ago. Wait, wife said she and her mom are both victims? So, she didn't deceive me on purpose? Great. When the Su family was in chaos, I pushed Sebastian's wheelchair and quietly left the scene. Hiding merit and fame. The Su family scandal swept through Yun City like a tornado. The Su Group's stock price plummeted, on the verge of bankruptcy. Lillian and Victor started divorcing, the lawsuit known to all. And Serena, from an envied true heiress, became an illegitimate daughter not fit for the stage. Her engagement with the Gu family also fell through, completely becoming a laughingstock in high society. All this happened as I expected. But I didn't expect Serena to come find me. On a rainy day, soaked through, she knelt at the Shen Manor gate, begging to see me. Mary, unable to bear it, came in to report. I was reading, without lifting my head, tell her to scram. Sebastian was peeling an apple beside me. Hearing this, his hand paused. Just letting her scram is too easy on her. Should have the bodyguards throw her far away. He cut the peeled apple into small pieces, stuck one with a toothpick, and fed it to my mouth. I opened my mouth and ate, sweet. Let her in. I suddenly changed my mind. Sebastian looked at me puzzled. Why? Could wife have softened? No, can't be merciful to enemies. I looked at him and smiled. I want to see how miserable she is now. Sebastian was stunned for a moment, then his inner barrage started crazily scrolling again. Oh ho, so wife wants to watch the show. This hobby, I like. Black-bellied little kitty, too cute. Soon, Serena was brought in. She was drenched, her hair messily stuck to her face, her originally beautiful princess skirt covered in mud. Where was there any trace of a heiress? As soon as she saw me, she pounced over, knelt at my feet, hugged my leg and cried loudly, "Sister! I was wrong. I really was wrong. Forgive me, okay? It's all Dad's fault. He deceived me. I didn't know things would turn out like this. Sister, help me, tell brother-in-law to help the Sue family, okay? Otherwise, the Sue family is really finished." She cried hysterically, tears and snot covering her face. I frowned in disgust and pulled my leg away. Sebastian immediately handed over a wet wipe. "So dirty, don't touch my wife." I wiped the place she touched, looking down at her with cold eyes. "Serena, have you forgotten? I'm no longer part of the Sue family long ago. The Sue family's life or death has nothing to do with me." "No. Sister, you can't be so heartless." Serena shouted excitedly, "The Sue family raised you for 20 years. How can you stand by and watch?" "Raised me for 20 years? I seem to hear the biggest joke. Yes, you raised me for 20 years, then sold me like goods to the Shen family, didn't you?" Serena was choked speechless by me. "Back then, when you forced me to substitute in the marriage, did you ever think about the 20 years of affection between us? Now that the Sue family is in trouble, you think of me? Serena, do you think I'm the kind of saint who repays enmity with kindness?" Serena's face was deathly pale. She knew begging me was useless. So, she turned her target to Sebastian. She knee-walked a few steps, crawled to Sebastian's wheelchair, and looked up pitifully. "Brother-in-law. I know you're a good person. You surely can't bear to see the Sue family end like this, right? As long as you're willing to help, I'm willing to do anything for you." As she spoke, she actually reached out to pull Sebastian's pant leg. Sebastian's face instantly darkened to the point of dripping water. "Get away. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. This woman is truly disgusting to the core." Before he could erupt, I spoke. "Serena," I said leisurely, "do you know? When the Sue family approached the Shen family for marriage, saying to marry their daughter over, the one the Shen family actually fancied was you." Serena's movements froze suddenly. She looked at me in disbelief, then at Sebastian. I continued, "The Shen family thought you, the legitimate heiress, were worthy of the Shen family's threshold. As for me, the fake, they didn't look up to me at all. But you despised my husband as disabled and were unwilling to marry. Your parents also couldn't bear you suffering, so they came up with the idea of having me substitute. So, it was you who personally pushed me into the position of Sebastian's wife. Tell me, shouldn't I properly thank you?" Serena's eyes widened more and more, filled with regret, jealousy, and unwillingness. She looked at me, then at Sebastian, at this magnificent manner, thinking of everything she lost and everything I gained. Her inner defenses completely collapsed. "Ah!" she screamed, pouncing at me like a madwoman. "Sophie! I'll kill you." Sebastian's face changed, subconsciously about to stand from the wheelchair to protect me. But it was too late. I didn't dodge. Just as Serena's nails were about to scratch my face, the butler rushed in with 2 bodyguards and swiftly subdued her. I looked at Serena, pinned down by the bodyguards, still struggling and roaring madly, and said faintly to the butler, "Send her to the mental hospital. I think she's really gone mad." After dealing with the Sue family, my life became much quieter. My relationship with Sebastian also entered a new stage. He was no longer satisfied with sneaky hugs and kisses. He began to openly exercise his rights as a husband. That night, he didn't go back to the study but directly entered my bedroom. After showering, with only a bath towel around his waist, he walked out of the bathroom. Water droplets slid down his well-defined chest, disappearing into his Adonis belt, sexy as hell. I was reading, and seeing him like this, my face flushed red with a boom. She blushed. Does she also think my figure is good? Great, seems my masculine charm is still useful. He was smug inside, but walked to my bedside seriously on the surface. Tonight, I sleep here. His tone wasn't discussion, but notification. Before I could speak, he had already lifted the blanket and lay down. The other side of the bed instantly sank. I could clearly feel the scorching heat coming from him. My heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. She's so nervous. I'm nervous too. What to do next? Kiss directly? Or say some sweet words to pave the way? Books say women like to hear sweet talk. He brewed for a long time, then turned to face me, affectionately saying, "Sophie." "HM?" I responded nervously. "You today, the way you cursed, was really beautiful." What kind of wolf words are these? For a moment, I didn't know how to react. Why isn't she speaking? Does she not like this compliment? Did I say something wrong? Done, the atmosphere is all ruined by me. Seeing his full inner drama, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. He was stunned. She laughed? Why is she laughing? Could she like me like this? I looked at his handsome yet confused face, proactively leaned over, and gently kissed his lips. You today, the jealous look, was also very cute. Sebastian completely petrified. In his mind, only countless bold exclamation marks scrolled. She kissed me. She proactively kissed me. She even said I'm cute. While he was dazed by the huge surprise and hadn't recovered, I turned over, back to him, "Good night." After a long time, I felt him carefully hug me from behind. His voice, with a barely noticeable tremble, "Good night, wife." Days passed one by one, and the day for Sebastian to close the net drew nearer. He became busier, often staying in the study until late at night. Meanwhile, Miles seemed to sense something, his actions becoming more frequent. He started openly forming cliques in the company, sidelining Sebastian's confidants. He even set his sights on me. That day, I received a call from a stranger. The other party claimed to be my biological father. I was stunned for a moment before remembering I had a so-called biological family. After the Sue family's farce, Lillian completely collapsed and was sent to a sanatorium. And my biological parents seemed to have learned of my existence through some channel. I mentioned this to Sebastian. He was blow-drying my hair at the time. Hearing it, his movements paused. Biological parents? Coming at this time, what do they want? Not coming for money again, right? Aloud he said, "See if you want, don't if you don't, up to you." I said at the time, "Don't want to." I had no feelings or expectations for that never-met family. But now, they actively sought me out. I hesitated but agreed to meet. The place was a cafe. When I arrived, a pair of honest-looking middle-aged couple was already waiting uneasily. Seeing me, they immediately stood up, with ingratiating smiles. You're Sophie, right?" That woman looked at me, her eyes reddening instantly. I nodded and sat opposite them. "What do you want with me?" I got straight to the point. They exchanged glances, and the man spoke. "Sophie, we know coming to you now is presumptuous. But your brother he's in trouble." My heart thumped. Brother? I have a brother? Your brother has leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. We don't match. The doctor said only a biological sister's has the highest success rate. So, Sophie, Dad begs you, save your brother. As he spoke, he was about to kneel to me. I quickly supported him. My mood was complex. A brother I've never met, I had no feelings for him. But it was a life. I couldn't stand by and watch. Where is the hospital? I asked. The man was overjoyed and immediately gave the hospital name. I promised them I'd do the matching as soon as possible. They left with thousands of thanks. I sat alone in the cafe for a long time. Sebastian's call came in. Where are you? His voice sounded tired. Outside, going back soon. I'll pick you up. Half an hour later, Sebastian's car stopped at the cafe entrance. I got in. He saw something wrong with me at a glance. What's wrong? Who bullied her? Her face looked so bad. I told him the matter. After listening, he was silent for a long time. Then, he reached out and pulled me into his arms. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Leukemia? Bone marrow transplant? Where in the world is such a coincidence? There must be something fishy. Miles, is this your doing? He already had suspicions in his heart. But I was still foolishly worrying about that unmet relative. The next day, I went to the hospital. The matching results came out quickly, 99% success rate. My biological parents hugged me, crying uncontrollably. Great! Noah is saved. Sophie, you're our family's great benefactor. Looking at the pale-faced boy on the bed, looking only 17 or 18, I also breathed a sigh of relief inside. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later. I told Sebastian about it. He was looking at documents. Hearing it, he looked up and gazed deeply at me. Have you really thought it through? Silly wife, this is obviously a trap. How should I remind her without making her think I'm cold-blooded? I nodded, thought it through. That's my brother. Sebastian didn't say more, just told me to take care of my body. The next 2 days, I rested at home, preparing for the surgery. Sebastian also put down work and stayed with me. He told me stories, watched movies with me, made various delicious foods for me. Gentle beyond words. I immersed in the gentle trap he wove, completely unaware that danger was quietly approaching. The night before the surgery, I received a call from the hospital. It was my biological mother. Her voice carried sobs, sounding very anxious. Sophie, bad news. Come to the hospital quick. Noah he suddenly had massive bleeding, now in rescue. My heart tightened, I immediately changed clothes, preparing to go out. Sebastian stopped me. I'll go with you. His face was very grave, as expected. Miles, you finally couldn't hold back. When we rushed to the hospital, the operating room light was still on. My parents were anxiously waiting at the door. Seeing me, they immediately surrounded. Sophie, you're finally here. The doctor said Noah's situation is dangerous now, must operate immediately. But the hospital's blood bank is insufficient. He has a special blood type. Sophie, you have that blood type too, right? Quick, go donate blood to save your brother. Without any doubt, I was about to find the doctor. But Sebastian held my hand. He looked at me, his eyes with an emotion I couldn't understand. Sophie, he said word by word, do you know how much blood a normal person can donate at once? 400 cubic centimeters. Exceeding this amount will cause irreversible damage to the body. But a leukemia patient with massive bleeding needs at least 2,000 cubic centimeters. They want you to die. My mind buzzed, blank. I looked incredulously at my so-called biological parents. A flash of panic and guilt on their faces. You're talking nonsense. How could we harm our own daughter? We're just too anxious. Yes, Sebastian sneered, anxious to the point of forgetting to hide the 5 million Miles gave you. He took out his phone and opened a photo. The photo showed my parents meeting a man. That man was none other than Miles. They were holding a check. My heart sank to the bottom instantly. So from beginning to end, this was all a scam. A vicious trap tailored for me using family ties and life. They weren't my relatives. They were executioners Miles found to take my life. I don't know how I left the hospital. I only remember being ice-cold all over, limbs stiff, like a puppet with its soul extracted. Sebastian held me tightly all along, continuously transferring his body heat to me. Back home, he placed me on the sofa and poured me a cup of hot water. "Don't be sad," he clumsily comforted me, "not worth it for such scum." Damn. I should have told her earlier. Seeing her sad, my heart is breaking. Miles. I definitely won't let you go. Holding the cup, tears finally fell uncontrollably. I'm not sad. I'm afraid in hindsight. If not for Sebastian, today I might really have died on the operating table. Died in what I thought was family affection. I looked up at him, voice hoarse, "They, and that boy, all actors?" Sebastian nodded, "That boy does have leukemia. But his real sister was found long ago, and the surgery was successful. Miles just used him to act this play. As for that couple, they're professional scammers, as long as paid, they'll do anything." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This world sometimes is really dirtier than I imagined. "Sebastian," I opened my eyes and looked at him, "when do you plan to close the net?" He was stunned, then understood my meaning, "Soon." He said, "The shareholders' meeting is next Monday." Good. I nodded, then before that, send him another big gift. My gaze became cold and firm. "Miles, you wanted me dead? Then I'll show you what living worse than death is." The next day, a video went viral online. The video showed the entire transaction process between Miles and my fake parents. Including how they planned the scam, how they used the sick boy's sympathy, how they lured me step by step. At the end of the video, Miles's bank transfer records to them were attached. Ironclad evidence. One stone stirred 1,000 waves. The Shen Group's stock price fell accordingly. And Miles, suspected of attempted murder, was taken away by the police for investigation. The elegant elder image he had painstakingly built for decades collapsed overnight. Watching on TV as he was handcuffed, looking disheveled, I felt no pleasure inside. Only a numb calm. Sebastian hugged me from behind, his chin on my head. "It's all over." Yes, all over. Those who tried to harm me got their due retribution. And I can finally start a new life. Monday, Shen Group shareholders meeting. This was the day deciding Shen's future fate. Also the day Sebastian fully laid his cards. As his wife, I also attended. In the conference room, the atmosphere was heavy. Those shareholders supporting Miles looked ashen, while those supporting Sebastian were joyful, eager. The meeting started. The acting chairman, the Shen family patriarch, announced the decision on Miles: revoke all his positions in the group, and transfer all shares under his name to Sebastian. No one objected to this decision. Next was electing the new chairman. Everyone thought Sebastian would naturally take over. However, at that moment, the conference room door was pushed open. A woman in hospital clothes, pale-faced, walked in accompanied by a lawyer. Seeing her, Sebastian's face changed instantly. Why is she here? What for? I recognized her. She was Sebastian's mother, also the former mistress of the Shen family. After Sebastian's car accident, due to excessive grief, she went abroad and ignored worldly affairs. She walked to the conference table, her gaze sweeping everyone present, finally landing on Sebastian. Her gaze was complex: pity, guilt, and a hint of resentment. I oppose. She spoke, voice not loud but clearly reaching everyone's ears. I oppose Sebastian becoming the chairman of Shen Group. The whole room was in uproar. Everyone looked at this mother-son pair in shock. Sebastian's lips pursed into a line. Why? Mom, why are you doing this? Sebastian's mother ignored the discussions, took a document from the lawyer. This is my husband's, that is Sebastian's father's, will made before his death. The will states that if Sebastian has health issues and cannot serve as chairman, then all shares under his name will be held and managed by me until he recovers. As she spoke, she looked at Sebastian with cold eyes. Now, my son is a cripple. So, I have the right to reclaim everything of his. Sebastian's mother's words were like a boulder thrown into a calm lake, stirring thousand waves. Everyone was stunned. No one expected that at this critical moment, the one stabbing Sebastian in the back would be his own mother. Sebastian sat in the wheelchair, face pale. He looked at his mother, eyes full of pain and confusion. Why? You know I'm acting. Why help outsiders against me? I held his hand on the armrest. His hand was cold as iron. I could feel him trembling. Sebastian's mother met his hurt gaze but just coldly turned away. She distributed copies of the will to every shareholder present. Everyone, the authenticity of the will is beyond doubt. From today, I will formally take over Shen Group. The faction supporting Miles immediately shifted with the wind, expressing support. We support Madam's decision. Sebastian is inconvenienced, indeed not suitable to manage the company anymore. With Madam leading us, we're assured. While those originally supporting Sebastian looked at each other, at a loss. They looked at Sebastian, then his mother, not knowing which side to stand. After all, one is the legitimate heir, one is the former mistress holding the will. This was simply a battle of immortals. Sebastian took a deep breath, seeming to want to say something. But before he spoke, I pressed his hand. I stood up, met his mother's cold gaze, and said smiling, "Aunt, have you misunderstood something? My husband isn't disabled at all." As I spoke, under everyone's shocked gazes, I pulled Sebastian up from the wheelchair. He stood straight, legs long and strong. Where was there any sign of disability? The entire conference room instantly fell silent as a pin. Everyone seemed spellbound, staring dumbfounded at this subversive scene. Sebastian's mother changed color even more, pointing at Sebastian, lips trembling, unable to speak. You. I linked Sebastian's arm, looking at her with a smile. "Aunt, now my husband has recovered. According to the will, can he legitimately take back everything that belongs to him?" The truth revealed, dust settled. Sebastian became the new chairman of Shen Group without suspense. That shareholders' meeting became a thorough farce. And Sebastian's mother left dejectedly the moment Sebastian stood up. I didn't know what kind of grudge existed between this mother and son. But I knew Sebastian was very sad. That night, he drank a lot. He held me, buried his head in my shoulder, like a helpless child. He didn't cry, but I could feel my shoulder wet. Why does she do this to me? Just because Dad's death is related to me? But it's not my fault. I quietly held him, listening to his inner pain and grievance, gently patting his back. Sebastian's father, the former chairman of Shen, died in a car accident while sending Sebastian to a race. And that car accident was orchestrated by Miles. But at the time, everyone thought it was an accident. Sebastian's mother blamed her husband's death entirely on Sebastian. She thought if not for Sebastian willfully going racing, her husband wouldn't have died. So she hated him. Hated to the point of preferring to give the company to outsiders rather than let her son inherit. My heart filled with dense pain. I cupped his face, making him look at me. "Sebastian," I said seriously, "it's not your fault. You're the victim, so is your dad. The real sinner is Miles." He looked at me with red eyes, like an injured little beast. I kissed away the tears at his eye corners, kissed his lips. "From now on, you have me. I'll always be with you." He kissed back forcefully, as if to rub me into his bones and blood. That night, we both used all our strength to embrace each other, as if only this way could prove we weren't alone. The next day, when I woke, Sebastian wasn't beside me. On the bedside table was a paper, an equity transfer agreement. He transferred all 50% of Shen Group shares under his name to me. At the end of the agreement, in bold handwriting, he wrote, "All of mine, to you." My eyes instantly wet. This fool. What I wanted was never his money. What I wanted, from beginning to end, was only him as a person. life finally returned to peace and sweetness. Sebastian fully controlled Shen Group, boldly reforming, managing the company orderly. And I became the most envied woman in Yin City. Holding vast wealth, with a handsome, wealthy husband who loves me dearly. Everyone says I, Sophie, saved the galaxy in my last life. Only I know I just met the right person at the right time. And happened to have a cheat. That day was our first wedding anniversary. Sebastian booked the entire most romantic revolving restaurant in Yin City to celebrate for me. Under the brilliant lights, he knelt on one knee, proposing to me again. In his hand was a pigeon egg several times larger than the one at the last wedding. Sophie, he looked at me affectionately, before, I deceived you. Now, I want to give you a real wedding anew. Are you willing? I looked at him, the laughter in my eyes about to overflow. I was about to nod, but suddenly his nervous inner voice rang in my mind, will she agree? She will, right? The ring size should be fine, I secretly measured last night. The proposal lines I memorized several times, should be no mistake? Ah, so nervous, heartbeat so fast. I burst out laughing. Already an old married couple, still so innocent. I took the ring, put it on, then pulled him up from the ground, I do. I said, but I have one condition. He immediately tensed, what condition? Say it, as long as I can do it, I'll agree to anything. What does she want? Stars in the sky? Or the moon? Whatever, I'll get it for her. I leaned to his ear, softly saying in a voice only we could hear, at the wedding, you have to tell me what you were thinking in your heart the first time you saw me. Sebastian's body instantly stiffened. He looked at me incredulously, eyes widening. That expression was identical to when I exposed his fake disability. What does she mean? Could she, no, impossible, must be overthinking. Seeing his panicked look, I laughed even happier. I tiptoed and printed a kiss on his lips. Then, using his inner voice, I answered the question that troubled him for a year, because I heard it. I said, I heard you say, pretending to be disabled is so tiring, luckily wife is fragrant and soft enough. Sebastian completely crashed. In his mind, only blankness and countless looping exclamation marks, at? She can hear my inner voice? From when? Holy shit. Then all those messy things I thought before, doesn't she know them all? Looking at his handsome face from shock to horror to despair, I finally couldn't help laughing out loud. So, the most touching love words in the world aren't I love you. But all your inner voices, I can hear them. And all my inner voices are saying, I love you, Sebastian. From the moment I heard your inner voice, I fell in love.